Good morning. We're all united here in Los Angeles in stopping the spread of the virus. And to do that requires full compliance with the mayor's Safer at Home order. And Angelenos are complying. But with this unprecedented situation and all these steps we're taking are coming some under-discussed consequences. And that's why I'm here with a very key partner, our leader in the county, District Attorney Jackie Lacey, to launch a new initiative this morning. Millions of Angelenos are staying home, and that is trying patience. It could place many of our most vulnerable residents in precarious and often dangerous situations. Let's think of our kids, for example. Historically, child neglect and abuse escalates dramatically in traumatic situations. And child advocates warn that during these emergencies, the dangers are more urgent. Schools are closed. Kids are home. They're away from eyes and ears in the community at large, from teachers to friends and neighbors, to doctors and others. I am very alarmed at what appears to be a dramatic decrease in reporting of crimes relating to our most vulnerable. For kids, for example, there has been, in the month or so since the emergency order was adopted, there's been a 47% drop in reported physical child abuse and a 67% drop in reported sexual child abuse. I'm very concerned that this is not the consequence of less abuse happening, but rather the consequence of less reporting happening. When it comes to older adults, nearly all outside visitors are barred now from being in nursing homes and assisted living facilities and similar locations. So friends and family aren't coming. And they're often the sources of information about potential abuse or neglect in these situations. There has been, in that same period, a 50% reduction in reports of elder abuse. And now, when it comes to individuals in abusive relationships, we know that staying at home means that victims of domestic violence are often trapped in those locations. They're cut off from friends and neighbors and colleagues and coworkers. And there's been a 13% reduction in reports of domestic violence. And by the way, there's been a 71% reduction in reports of animal abuse. Today, I'm here with DA Lacey to announce our Behind Closed Doors campaign. It's a public awareness effort. The public will be on the front lines in this effort. Neighbors, delivery personnel, plumbers, electricians, repair people, workers, gardeners, front lines. Be aware, be alert. And if you see something that appears not to be right, please say something. Be aware, be alert. And we have partners. When it comes to our effort to confront issues of domestic violence, we have partners in the California Grocers Association. And grocers throughout Los Angeles are going to be posting notices that make people who come to stores aware of the resources available to them as victims of domestic violence, even in this pandemic. And grocery stores are an important place because those are locations, among the few locations, where people who otherwise are trapped in abusive relationships might be able to leave the home, come to these places, and we're very proud to have partnered with our grocers. We're also partnering with our friends at the school district. LAUSD has been very collaborative with us, and they'll be posting notices at their food distribution locations. The message to anyone who's enduring an abusive relationship is there are services and places for you to go. And if you can't make that call for help, you can text 911. And by the way, if you have a friend or family member in a nursing home or assisted living facility, I want to urge you to call them on the phone and to try to make arrangements with caregivers to FaceTime your friends and your loved ones. That may not be perfect, but it is an important substitute to actually being physically with them. And now a word about guns. We know that there's been a tremendous escalation in the purchase of handguns since the pandemic started. There's been nearly 2 million guns purchased in the month of March alone in the United States. That is the second highest total for a month ever. Also in March, the FBI has reported 3.7 million background checks by the FBI in that month. That's the highest number in more than 20 years. And here in California, there were 164,000 background checks performed during that period. That's a 72% increase, and these guns are ending up in people's homes. They have to be stored safely. That's a fundamental message right now. Because if they're not stored safely, they're going to end up in the hands of kids. As you know, we have prosecuted adults when guns have ended up in the hands of kids. They could end up in the hands of a despondent relative, a despondent teen. Suicides are a possible consequence of the failure to store guns safely. We can solve this issue by simply locking up your guns. So I want to urge that everybody in Los Angeles has a weapon, a firearm, does that. If you have a gun in the home, keep it locked up, keep it away from kids, store the ammunition separately, and prevent a tragedy. So during this crisis, everybody, I think, has become particularly aware of how important local government is and how fundamental cooperation across these jurisdictional lines is to keeping our communities safe. We could not have a stronger, more effective partner than our district attorney, Jackie Lacey, to whom I now want to turn. Jackie?
Thank you, Mike. Good morning. I want to thank Los Angeles City Attorney Mike Feuer, Mayor Eric Garcetti, and the Grocers Association and LAUSD for coming together with my office to help victims of crime. Today we're enlisting our newest heroes, those who feed families, to help us get important information into the hands of our most vulnerable victims. We in law enforcement are especially concerned right now with protecting the people who live in Los Angeles County from domestic violence, child abuse, and elder abuse. Believe me, these crimes don't stop just because we're in a crisis. They typically take place behind closed doors. Traditionally, we have depended upon teachers, medical professionals, and others in our community to report these crimes when their victims cannot, or more often than not, will not. With stay-at-home orders in place, victims may not come in contact with the people who once were mandated to help them. Now that's where the Grocers Association and the Los Angeles Unified School District come in. We've asked association members to display a flyer with vital information for victims of domestic violence, child abuse, and elder abuse. The flyer lists contact information for hotlines, shelters, legal aid, and government services, including the phone number to my Bureau of Victim Services. LAUSD will do the same at its Grab and Go food centers. I hope that every person who receives these flyers will post them prominently. We want crime victims to know that despite this pandemic, we are here for them. My office continues to provide victim services, though much of our work is now conducted over the phone and by computer rather than in person. Now, in addition to prosecuting offenders, we help victims secure protective orders and provide resources and referrals for food, shelter, and counseling. More than 28,000 crime victims sought services from my office the last fiscal year. My office provides services to crime victims even when criminal charges are not filed. And these services are free and available to all residents of LA County. U.S. citizenship is not required. It's especially appropriate that we're announcing this public information campaign aimed at crime victims during the National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Now, as a career prosecutor, I have sought justice on behalf of crime victims for more than 3 decades. And as your district attorney, I have hired more victim services representatives to assist crime victims like these and access both compensation and services. I want to take a moment to publicly thank all of the people in the DA's office who work with crime victims on a day-to-day basis, and in particular, our victim services representatives. I also want to recognize the dedication of the people who work for and support our community-based partners. The group listed on the flyer are filled with people committed to helping crime victims rebuild their lives. As we go through this pandemic together, we must be prepared to play that role for neighbors, friends, and family members in need. In addition to victims themselves, I'm asking every person who lives and works in Los Angeles County to be on the lookout for people who may need your help. You don't have to be a victim to call these hotlines and report a crime. Others are depending upon you to take notice and do something. With schools closed, some children have lost a valuable lifeline. The more time they spend behind closed doors, the longer child abuse may go undetected. Educators and other mandatory reporters are not seeing these children on a regular basis. Under our safer at home restrictions, no one outside the family may be around to notice the signs of child abuse and report it. I'm asking all of you to step up and share your suspicions with law enforcement. The same with domestic violence and elder abuse. The isolation of our stay-at-home orders can mask incidents of domestic violence taking place behind closed doors. And as for our seniors, we worry about their health. We must be concerned with their well-being. Elder abuse comes in several forms. It can be physical, emotional, and financial. If you suspect a child, a senior, or a dependent adult is being abused, please call law enforcement if it's an emergency. If it's not an emergency, please call one of the numbers on our flyer for help. It's up to all of us to make sure that our family, friends, neighbors, and colleagues get through this public health emergency without becoming a victim of a crime. Finally, I want to say that I'm proud of the way that people in my office have responded to these unprecedented times. We are essential service providers and continue to work through this pandemic. The criminal courts remain open, and we have embraced innovation as we continue to fulfill our constitutional duties under this rapidly changing circumstance. We're participating in video arraignments and working collaboratively with our agencies to stop the spread of the coronavirus by reducing our footprint in offices, courthouses, and jail. Since early March, I have been talking daily with our criminal justice system partners to make sure that victims' rights are protected and that justice is served. 6 weeks ago, I directed my deputy district attorneys to consider both public safety and health risks in every decision they make during this crisis. It has been a challenging time, but public safety remains our top priority. That's why we're here today. It's just the latest effort to apply new and innovative ways to protect the residents of Los Angeles County from crime during this pandemic. Please stay safe. Together, we will get through this.
Thank you, Jackie. I'd like to say a few words in Spanish, and then if we have any questions, we're available to take them. Okay. We're changing the guard here. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Todos estamos unidos para detener la propagación del virus. Una clave es el pleno cumplimiento de la orden de mantenerse seguros en casa. Pero con esta acción sin precedentes tiene consecuencias inesperadas que nos llevan a lanzar una nueva iniciativa hoy día. Millones de angelinos que se quedan en casa han probado nuestra paciencia. En más de algunas situaciones que han colocado a algunos de nuestros residentes más vulnerables en situaciones peligrosas, nuestros hijos, adultos mayores, individuos en relaciones abusivos. Hoy, la fiscal del distrito Jackie Lacey y yo anunciamos la campaña de información pública Behind Closed Doors, atrás de puertas cerradas. El público estará en primera línea de nuestros esfuerzos. Vecinos, repartidores, fontaneros, electricistas, jardineros, están atentos y alertas. Cuando vean algo que no se vea bien, digan algo. Nos hemos asociado con la Asociación de Tiendas de Comestibles de California y el Distrito Escolar Unificado de Los Ángeles para publicar en sus tiendas y centros de distribución de alimentos recursos para víctimas de abusos domésticos. Hay servicios para ayudarlos y lugares a donde se pueden ir. Lo más importante, si no pueden irse o hacer llamadas, puedan enviar en mensaje de texto 911. Finalmente, con el aumento dramático en los compradores de armas de fuego, les recordamos a nuestros residentes que es esencial guardar estas armas de forma segura, lejos de los niños. Gracias. Okay, Rob, are there any questions?
Yes, the first question comes from Chris and Carlo of KFI AM 640. Aside from the public relations campaign, are there more aggressive steps being taken? For example, law enforcement check-ins with people who have a history of child and domestic abuse, or assistance facilities with a history of reported abuse?
Okay. I'm happy to start and then turn things over to Jackie. The answer is yes. In our office, for example, when it comes to issues of elder abuse, our office is checking in with victims. We're checking in with victims of domestic violence as well to see how things are going. Merely that checking in may surface additional information and also provide comfort and connection to those victims. We also heard, and I'll let Ms. Lacey talk about this as well, that the sheriff is conducting welfare checks in locations where child abuse could be possible. Jackie, would you like to elaborate further?
Sure. Well, I will just reiterate what Mike said. We have over 200 victim services representatives, and they have been checking in with the victims on our cases to make sure that they're safe, that they're healthy, that they have protective orders, and ensuring that if there is an issue, the police can be called and we can call that to the court's attention. With regard to law enforcement, you all probably have heard the Sheriff's Department is in fact doing welfare checks. And I would imagine that our Department of Children and Family Services with the county is also doing the same thing, checking on the welfare of children. But that's the reason for our public relations campaign in this press conference. It takes more than the people who are identified to look after children to really catch child abuse, because if they know those people are coming to the door, chances are the abuser may have control of that situation and not allow the victim to say anything. But if you're alert and you're someone in the neighborhood, in the grocery store, you see a suspicious injury, you're checking in with an elder via FaceTime or some other mechanism, and they look terrified or they're crying or you can tell something is wrong, it behooves us as regular people to say something, to do something. Better you call and be wrong than you not call and find out later you could have saved someone's life. And so that's the message. We want everyone to be involved. And right now, with restaurants being closed, schools being closed, essential businesses like grocery stores are open. And most, if not all of us, have to go through those places. So we're really glad that the Grocers Association decided to partner with us. We'd like to see more retail associations do the same thing, drugstores, places like that. But this is an area where we all have to congregate as a community. And so we need to, if we see something suspicious, jump in there, say something, call these hotlines. Someone will respond and go out and check on the welfare of those people. And I might add, your identity could be kept anonymous if you report it, so you don't have to worry about repercussions, if you will, for reporting abuse. And you should.
Thank you, guys. And Chris, thank you for the question. Ms. Lacey's point is so important. This campaign is about galvanizing all of us, and we know throughout our community, people are looking for ways to contribute to the public good. Being involved in this Behind Closed Doors campaign and actively reaching out and checking in on folks and saying something when you see something is a way you can contribute in the midst of this virus. I do want to say one more thing, by the way, about domestic abuse. So our courts traditionally issue what are called emergency protective orders for 5 to 7 days. In the midst of this crisis, there's a judicial order that allows those emergency protective orders to stay in place for up to 30 days. So again, I want to underscore to people who are in abusive relationships concerned that there may not be protections available to them. Between our offices, our respective partners at the Sheriff's Office and the Los Angeles Police Department, and the vast network of support that's available to you, there are people who are here to protect you. Next question.
This one is from Margaret Carrero at KNX 1070 News Radio. Can you please offer some examples of what people should be looking for when it comes to possible abuse?
You know, from my experience as a prosecutor, the obvious signs are bruises, injuries, black eyes, marks that you wouldn't normally expect to see. Also, sometimes victims try to reach out for help. I mean, in the trials of Gabriel Fernandez, if you watch that, that child, he's 8 years old and he was murdered, but he tried very hard to reach out to different people that he came in contact with. Pay attention to those types of things. Same thing with seniors. Some of our seniors suffer from cognitive disabilities, dementia, and we may be discounting that when actually they're telling the truth. So better to be safe than sorry. If there's something suspicious about the way the victim looks, or if the victim appears to be in distress and trying to tell you something, go ahead, report it, be their voice. Call in, let us check on them and make sure they're okay, as opposed to later saying, gee, I wish I had done something.
And that's such a great answer. I just want to elaborate to say this much regarding senior citizens who are in nursing homes and assisted living locations where family, which traditionally might have come every day, physically can't come. While our seniors may not always be as adept on their own with new technology as some people who are younger, I know that one very valuable thing you can do, and we do this in our own family, is to employ FaceTime or other ways to have a visual connection to someone who's in a nursing home or assisted living facility. We're all struggling, and again, I can say my own family, we're all struggling to maintain these vital connections with seniors with whom we otherwise would have very close ties. And I want to say, if the nursing home or assisted living facility where your loved one is located doesn't respond to your request to have some FaceTime, Skype, or some other kind of face-to-face contact with that person, you should really push them to provide that, because in most cases there is a cell phone or something around that would enable that connection to happen. And you can tell a lot from that from that visual connection that is created with the technology we have available to us.
Mike, if I could just add one little small sentence, that one other thing, we often think of abuse as hitting someone, berating someone, or taking their money with elders. Neglect is also abuse under the penal code. So if somebody isn't getting fed, if somebody is showing symptoms of the coronavirus and they're just being left in a bed to expire, that too is against the law. And so that too qualifies as abuse, and you should report that.
Other questions? So I really want to underscore the value of that every person in our city can add to, in our city and our county, can add to this effort. This is your opportunity to assure that some potential victim in your midst is saved from a tragedy, be it a child, an individual in an abusive relationship, a senior citizen, or, as I mentioned, a pet, an animal in someone's home. This partnership is very important, not only the partnership we have with the grocers and LAUSD, a partnership we hope will grow, but also the partnerships between the offices of the District Attorney and the LA City Attorney's Office. Jackie, thank you again so much for that.
Thank you, Mike, for leading on this issue.
Very good. We're done. Thanks very much.